Hello everyone, I'm Swati from PharmaState Academy, and on behalf of all the attendees today, I welcome the esteemed authors, marketing guru Professor Kotler, Professor Waldemar, and Professor Ube, and all the speakers from Indian pharmaceutical industry too. A very warm welcome to all the session attendees, which includes MBA students, CEOs, managing directors, and many dignitaries from across the industries. This is a dream come true for PharmaState Academy and all of us here. And we all at our academy were aware of the new book, Human to Human Marketing. We were keen to hear from the authors more about this book, but had no courage to ask them to join us for a virtual event. But somewhere we gathered the courage and trusted that it is possible. And I'm still wondering if this is true or a dream. Thank you. Thank you so much, authors, for this opportunity. And as this session is also a part of Professor Kotler's birthday celebrations, we wish that he blesses us for many more years through his innovative work. It is going to be a wonderful session today, and we have Gauri Chaudhari to moderate this session. Let me take a moment to introduce the moderator for today's session. Gauri Chaudhari is a pharma and healthcare marketing, advertising, and branding professional for over 27 years experience with over 27 years of experience. She is also an author of Amazon bestseller, The Perfect Pill, 10 Steps to Build a Strong Healthcare Brand. Gauri Chaudhari regularly writes for business publications and is quoted for her views on healthcare sector. Over to you, Ms. Gauri Chaudhari, to moderate the session.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Swati. And like you said, it's really dream come true. I mean, one was not really sure whether we'll be able to do this kind of session together, but thank you so much for getting all the authors together and a very relevant time. All of us really need to know during this pandemic how human to human marketing is going to help us. Of course, Professor Kotler needs no introduction. I can guarantee that there won't be a single person in today's audience whose life is not touched by Professor Kotler's work. In fact, his work is what connects all of us and makes us a big family of marketing professionals all over the world. Over the past many years, Professor Kotler has written several books, and he continues guiding and inspiring us in our professional journeys. So I know for sure, whenever there is a dilemma in our lives, be a young trainee or a managing director, he or she just opens Professor Kotler's writings and try to find answers to their problems. So Professor Kotler, as Dr. Swati said, we have a very esteemed audience today, all ears to hear what you have to say to them. There are a managing director, CEOs of pharma and non-pharma companies, seasoned marketing professionals and from several countries, and many young students from these schools who want to hear you. And yes, my friends, in the audience, let me tell you, we are fortunate to have Professor Waldemar and Professor Ube. They are the co-authors of book H2H Marketing. They will help us understand what truly constitutes human integrity in marketing. and how through marketing we can make this world a better place. During this pandemic, the companies are under stress, profits are under pressure, we have multiple dilemmas. Should we chase profits at the cost of customer service? When customers are refusing to meet us, should we still push our brands or take a step back? And maybe in this situation, how do we do justice to customers, to the companies, and every other stakeholder? The authors will help us resolve some of these issues or dilemmas. For the rest, one has to read their book, H2H Marketing. Interestingly, today we also have 4 experts from the industry who will elaborate on how these H2H marketing principles can be adapted to our daily marketing activities. Though none of the authors or speakers need any introduction, Dr. Swati insists that I must do that. So every one of us know marketing guru, Philip Kotler. He's one of the world's leading authorities in marketing. He was the S.C. Johnson and Son Distinguished Professor of International Marketing at Kellogg's Northwestern University. He is the author of several books which changed the modern marketing thinking and has received many accolades for his contribution globally. He has consulted several multinational companies and also advised governments on how to develop stronger public agencies for the further development of nation's economic well-being. So thank you, Professor Kotler, for coming here.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is going to be Professor Waldemar. Professor Waldemar is Professor Emeritus at Pfoertsch University of Applied Sciences, Pfoertsch Business School, Germany. Students across USA, Europe, India, and China are benefited from his teaching. He is one of the world's leading authorities in B2B marketing and industrial brand management. He has extensive experience in management consulting. He is the co-author or author of many books, more than 30 books in German and English, and he has written numerous articles. So welcome, Professor Waldemar. Professor 𝐁𝐢𝐫𝐭𝐡𝐝, welcome to you. Professor 𝐁𝐢𝐫𝐿 is a professor for service engineering, innovation management, design thinking, B2B marketing and sales, as well as strategic management at FHWS, University of Applied Sciences, Würzburg, Schweinfurt, Germany. He also teaches at Christ University, Bangalore, India, and several other foreign universities. He has supported companies with design thinking and consulting projects. He is a founding partner of In Situ Management Consulting and Body Stance GmbH. Welcome to all the 3 authors, and we are really looking forward to very interesting session. So Dr. Kotler, every one of us want to hear you. So I would request you to just talk to our audience and let them hear the words of wisdom straight from the Guru.
Thank you very much, Gauri, to introduce the program. And I think before we get to the book, we should talk about what preceded that book in our thinking about not only marketing and business, but about life itself. I think that it might help to remind people here of a series of books that were written earlier called Marketing 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and 5.0. Actually, there was no book 1.0 or 2.0, but when we wrote the first one called 3.0, we looked backwards. And we said that marketing was at a stage at one time that was very functional. You made a product, you wanted to tell people about it, you used advertising and good pricing and so on, and you sold things that way. You assumed that the customers were rational and they would buy the product if it met their needs. Your approach was completely unemotional. It was just functional and descriptive. That's the way, by the way, marketing appeared in Russia when I would visit Russia. They would just describe a lot of things that you could buy, but it wasn't with any punch. So we felt that 1.0 marketing, which worked for so many years from the beginning, can be even improved if you brought in emotions, because people are human, and we even might say that 70% of our decisions are emotional, but not only as consumers, but also as producers. I mean, B2B too, that are people who are taking risk, and how much risk can they accept and tolerate, and they have to make emotional decisions too. Anyways, that was called 2.0. And 3.0 made the point that we should really think of marketing as having the mission of improving lives. And particularly, what do we mean by that? Yes, raising the standard of living would be a good way to put it. And I believe we can say that marketers approached consumers and said, we have this wonderful thing for the kitchen. You don't need an ice box, you need a refrigerator. And you can even buy it on credit, but your life would be better if you didn't have to spend so much time in the kitchen. We have appliances that do that. So basically, we were raising the standard of living with marketing. And when we thought more deeply about it, we thought that the goal was creating customer satisfaction. That is, identifying needs and then satisfying them. I think the goal should be higher. I think the marketing we do should be enhancing the happiness and the well-being, including the health of people. Okay, so that being the case, 3.0 started to shadow that idea that we want to basically improve the lives, help people improve their lives. 4.0 came along because we all recognized that marketing was undergoing a digital revolution that was going to have a lot of benefits, like we can really go from mass marketing to segment marketing to one-on-one marketing. If we knew enough about each individual, we could personalize and customize our offers for them, for each person. And so 4.0 developed a picture of the digital revolution and everything implied by that. Why did we do 5.0? We did 5.0 because we noticed that there's a lot of new technologies that can be useful in marketing. Certainly, this goes beyond just having the digital world. We have AI, we have algorithms, we have virtual reality and augmented reality. We have facial recognition, voice recognition, a lot of those new developments. And the point is, Mr. Company, are you going to need any of these? Why don't you check on each one? Maybe drones would help your company do better. Ask yourself for each of these intelligent new techniques and technologies, could it help your business? Okay, now the thing is, behind all of this was the idea of not that the world is consumers and producers and suppliers and insurance companies, but it's really a lot of human beings transacting, interacting. And the human to human idea was very important to bring back to people. Now, my colleagues did a marvelous job. This book, H2H, had its origins in Europe, actually. And they used a lot of data to make the points that we're going to talk about. There are three major things that they cover about marketing that are not in most textbooks on marketing. In other words, they tell us what the role is of great design. Design thinking and marketing thinking are in parallel. I mean, I could tell you I'm not a marketer, I'm a designer. And then this whole idea that are people interested in accumulating products, or basically aren't they interested in getting the services settled that they need, which are delivered often by products, but they're also delivered by barbers when you get a haircut, or and pilots when you get on the plane and they fly you somewhere. So service centricity is very important. And the third idea is the digitalization of the world. So I would like to ask Waldemar, my friend from long standing, to tell us more about the background of the work they did before we issued H2H Marketing.
Absolutely. Is Professor Waldemar there?
All right. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you very much. I feel, yes, it's true, Uwe and myself, we are from Europe, but actually many of these ideas were created in India, and Uwe will talk in detail about that. I mean, what we did, as you just said, we were building together with you on marketing 4.0 and 5.0. Actually, when you look at the end of the chapter, there is also lots of stuff from your interesting new view of capitalism. I mean, what you also discussed at your birthday meeting about stakeholder capitalism. I mean, we want to go together in this direction. And of course, we want to include a better world, which means also sustainability and improving the living conditions of many people around the globe. And marketing is in a very difficult situation because there are people who think marketing is not necessary. This comes from various angles, from technology angles, from financial angles, even from operational angles where the role of marketing is challenged. Nevertheless, I think if we take our thinking, our work serious, we can improve the work of marketing and the life of the people. And therefore, I think the new concept, which is just a further step in the direction of better marketing, the H2H marketing, is one way of securing that and one way of getting a positive outcome.
Absolutely. I think, Professor Waldemar, you said it so beautifully. Like all of us marketeers sometimes hear this, that, oh, you marketeers, you are not, I can't trust you. Let me ask someone else, some other consumer or a customer who has used your product. I'll not trust you. But the whole concept of human-to-human marketing is actually building this trust and taking people on the platform of where the world becomes a better place for us as a community, and we become part of a better planet. Professor Kotler, so now may I ask you one question? As a student, I remember we used to try and get the copy of marketing management from our library and read about 4 Ps. Do you think in today's H2H world, do you think the 4 Ps of marketing have now evolved into something very different and not so kind of relevant to our day-to-day, or they have got enmeshed into a newer and bigger idea?
Well, sure. I would like to comment on your question. Every company must answer at least 4 Ps in their marketing plan. They have to describe what their product will be, how it will be priced, where it will be available for purchase, and also with information about how the product works. So the 4 Ps: price, product, place, and promotion. Now, some people said there must be more than the 4 Ps. They said, where's the sales force? Oh, I say, well, that's under promotion. That's another tool of promotion. All right. Then he said, where's packaging? I said, well, that's a P, but when we talk about the product, we mean the product as you see it. It's in a package. So we bring up new ideas for packaging our product under what we call product. But if you want it to be a 5th P, let's say packaging is a 5th P. Along came the people who were working mostly with services rather than products. And they said, we need 3 more Ps. First of all, we want to have a protocol evidence of that purchase if you went on an airline flight, where's the materials to show that you really did? Well, it's the ticket. Here's my ticket. So that's protocol information. And maybe they also said people should be really the focus, and that's not, people aren't mentioned in the 4 Ps, so let's add people. And then process, like anyone who's been to McDonald's can describe a whole process of what it means to walk in and where you stand and what you do and so on. There's a process and a service. So they added 3 protocols, processes, and people. Okay, that made 7. Now, my attitude is, in preparing your plan, take every variable that is under your control, put it in the marketing mix, which is more than 4 Ps if you want. Make sure you address each of those elements. Notice that the marketer faces 2 things. One is a set of uncontrollable variables, not in his or her control, like the state of the economy, whether there's recession, whether it's a rainy day or a sunny day. Those things are uncontrollables. Marketing is about finding the set of controllables and setting them, because there are some things under your control, but set them in such a way that they are meshed with and match the uncontrollables. So that's really goes to an idea we put into H2H, which is design thinking. What is design thinking if it isn't preparing the look and the functioning of some situation so that it is well designed to accomplish the purposes that you have in mind, which really means that for a marketer, it's taking the marketing mix and using the parts of it that will fit and help you succeed with your objectives. Okay, so now the real question, so let's go back now. Maybe we can hear from Professor 𝐁𝐢𝐫 too, and from Waldemar about how they went from the marketing 5.0. Oh, you mentioned one more thing, then I'll listen to them. And that is, there's a big tendency now among corporate managers to think freshly about whether their job is to maximize profits for the shareholders and not give away any money to any cause, which is the old-fashioned market business. Maximize, by the way, if your purpose is to maximize profits, why don't you just pay the least you need to pay the workers, get the cheapest suppliers. And that was the practice at some point, that to be left with the most, you pay the least for your inputs. Well, that's dumb. That's really dumb. Actually, if you really want to maximize the return, to give a good return to the investors or shareholders, you should be generous to your employees so they're motivated and happy. You should be generous to your suppliers by choosing the best ones who want to work with you for a long time and become more productive and share the benefits with you and so on. So that's what we call stakeholder capitalism. And the main thing about that is identify your stakeholders and make sure they feel well rewarded for being members of the team. And the problem is that where do you put the shareholders in the list of stakeholders? Well, this wonderful company, Unilever, and you remember Lever was always in India too. They said, and it's their president, who is now retired, but Mr. Paul Polman, the CEO, said, I have 7 stakeholders and I'm going to give you them in order. And he said customers and employees, and he went on, and the 7th was shareholders. Now, he was telling the shareholders, in a sense, you're the last one I think about, but what I do with the other 6 will make such a big difference to you as a shareholder. And he's convinced us. Just look at Unilever's brilliant history under his 10 years of management. So I'm glad someone mentioned earlier that we should also say that the movement toward stakeholder capitalism is replacing, I hope, at some rate, shareholder thinking only.
Absolutely. And before
now we still want to know how that experience in India led my colleagues to start talking about human to human.
Absolutely. And what a wonderful topic it is, because somewhere, Dr. Kotler, you have told that company profits and customers are not two separate things or contradictory goal to each other, but it's possible. And both Professor Waldemar and Professor Uwe has also given us a path how to do it. So Professor Uwe, how did you come to this entire concept of human-to-human marketing book and put it so beautifully for the readers? Quickly, Professor Uwe, would you like to say the story behind this? I mean, in a very short, if we can, because we know there is Bangalore very much enmeshed into how H2H marketing came into existence as a book. So if you can just quickly tell us.
Phil, am I?
Yes, please.
There is not a simple answer to that. There are several routes to this book. And so let me tell you the two main routes for me, from my point of view.
Yes.
One route is that I studied marketing at the University of Trier, and it is already more than now nearly 40 years ago. And I studied it with a textbook, which is marketing management from my godfather in marketing, Philip Kotler. So, and I was so fascinated about the subject of marketing, and I could apply it because of my professor. He took me to a marketing club. He gave me the opportunity to work in a perception lab. So I really got in touch with the core, which I thought is marketing. I studied how humans behave, and then there came the magical question for me, which is gaining more and more importance, and that's the question why. So actually that is something what drives me my whole life, that I'm always interested in the why, and our kids teaching us that wonderfully. They always ask the annoying question why. Us as parents, we are really annoyed sometimes about it, but that's what was for me one route. So for me, marketing thinking always was related to the question why humans behave like they behave and why they think and feel how they do. And somehow after my studies and after my PhD, I went out in the industry. I was a management consultant and I was a service engineer. I developed service concepts globally for varying industry company. And that was not the marketing I was taught. And that was not the marketing I have seen from my point of view. So this was one route. And for decades, I would say for at least 2 decades, this was something what has driven me and made me doubting about the sense and meaning of marketing. And I especially have to announce there is nothing more arrogant than male German engineer, and I had to work a lot with them. And so marketing was always reduced to a promotion function and at maximum promotional function. Okay, we also could deal with fairs, but then the second route was that I had the opportunity to invent an MBA program with my partner, Christ University, or Christ deemed to be University in Bangalore. At that time, it was a Christ College. And so I had the opportunity to stay at least 2 to 3 times a year in Bangalore and the surroundings. And it made me really think, because I was pampered and very in a huge comfort zone coming from Germany. And of course, I talked about human problems, but definitely I couldn't see any more real human problems. And India made it possible for me. India was an eye-opener for me, telling me, what does it make? Does it really make sense to sell another watch, sell another car, and so on? And we are not solving anymore the real human problems, maybe because we can't see them anymore. And that was, for me, a wonderful occasion that I had the chance to really live with people from India. And they made me insights into human problems I never have seen before. And at the same time, I learned about First Things First, which was a manifesto. And this manifesto was definitely, so we have to do something for the bottom of the pyramid and not for the top of the pyramid. And so this was my second route. And then the third route was Waldemar. So Waldemar was sitting with me together at the marketing association meeting in Düsseldorf in Germany. And he asked his colleagues, below them I was, and he asked us, who of you is interested to write with me the 6th edition of B2B marketing? And I was so silly to say, yes, me. I'm really looking forward. And he was so silly to accept me, because then he said, you will have the lead. And so I told him, when you give me the lead, there will be nothing anymore like it was in your book. And he was laughing at that time, but after 6 months, he knew what he did. So, and then of course, the big Bangalore story is that my wonderful partner, which is much more a human partner than only a university partner, and the former Vice Chancellor, Father Thomas Matthew, we were really friends, and we challenged each other. And I asked him, can you host me for more than 6 months so that I have really a chance to stay away from all the noise of the world and keep my concentration on developing an approach? And so he even put me in the so-called village campus in 𝐏𝐫𝐤𝐸, which is 25 kilometers outside of Bangalore. And he gave me the opportunity to stay there in peace, really peaceful environment. The only thing what I did was running and writing and reading, and that's it. And Waldemar visited me several times in Bangalore, and he loved the hot food, Waldemar, and the hot and spicy food. And he was the one, you know, I'm a very chaotic guy. I'm really a creative, I would say a creative guy. And that was another route, because design thinking, I'm familiar with since more than 10 years. And I was really annoyed that with the question, when I have design thinking, what is marketing thinking? And it brought us back to the core competency question. What is the core competency of marketing? And I still believe it is the encoding of why humans behave like they behave. And if this is our core competency, nobody will come back to the situation to put us and limit us to a promotional function or something like that, because nobody can avoid to think about why humans behave like they do. That's it. That's the story. And all the rest you can read in the book.
Absolutely. And so beautifully, you have said that it's all about why people do what they do, and understanding it, like Professor Kotler said, is not so rational. It's all so much of emotion out there. And we as marketeers must understand those human problems and of course, try and solve them through empathy. So Professor Waldemar, if you can tell us about what is this human to human mindset? I mean, one will of course know processes, but at the heart of everything is that mindset. And once we adapt to that mindset, adopt that mindset, we are going to, you know, make justice to this entire human to human philosophy.
Well, before I would like to answer this question, I would like to go back to our model, the complete H2H model, which is the essence of the thinking of the new way of marketing. It actually incorporates all the things what Phil has developed over the last couple of years and adding a few more dimensions. And as we said, this new H2H marketing is accompanied or is added through new things. I mean, the service dominant logic, and we will hear more about that later, has changed the world, has changed the way we are looking at we are doing business, from a goods oriented business to a service. And today we know actually everything is service. And if we follow that kind of thinking, our way of doing marketing is different. The second aspect was the design thinking. Creativity and constant innovation is necessary to please the human's requirements. People move on, the world is changing, and therefore we need solutions. And design thinking gives us an opportunity. And of course, in the last couple of years, the digitalization has fundamentally turned our normal behavior inside out. even the marketing became different. So if you put the normal marketing and these new three aspects together, we have one new concept. But important from this concept is actually the mindset, the thing, how we think about that. And the mindset in the right way of human-to-human marketing comes from these three dimensions. In addition, we need to manage it. And of course, in addition, we need to have the processes. These are things which are necessary to make the whole thing follow through, make it happen, make it manageable. And that mindset comes from a customer-based consideration. We define the world as we are looking from a customer, and that customer-based view gone through the instruments of design thinking, service dominant logic, and digitalization creates that H2H mindset. And that H2H mindset, if you go deeper, and when you look at the various one, let's say in design thinking, yeah, the human-centered mindset is as part of the design thinking. The design thinking puts people in the middle of everything, and therefore they give us the opportunity to think in these terms. Also, marketing is considered as experimental. It is done in an iterative innovation process. So things are experientially recognized. And of course, at the end, we have a deep marketing-based insight. So design thinking gives us great way of forming, and we think in this term afterwards. The same is true for the service dominant logic. This is the conceptual foundation of the new concept, and also it is the base of a so-called value co-creation in a collaborative ecosystem. There are more aspects to it, but I only want to stress also the importance of customer experience. This is part of the service dominant logic. And then we have the digitalization, which gives the technical prerequisite for H2H marketing, because we can actually address each person by itself, a continuous dematerialization of offerings, and of course also an increased importance of trust. In the internet world, if we have no chance of connecting, we need to trust with whom we connect, and therefore digitalization is one of these fabulous things, but also on the other side, one of these scary things. So all these three elements, design thinking, service dominant logic, and digitalization, form the mindset. And with this mindset, we do marketing differently, and we could do H2H marketing.
Absolutely. This whole idea of co-creation is so important. And I guess this is where partners, the companies and customers actually become partners. Just one small question, I mean, to any one of you. Many people in pharma companies feel that entire marketing is rational because if it is about health, though we always know that we feel unwell, it's not we think unwell. So there is a lot of feeling. But the question is that it's in the end, doctors are rational. In the end, the entire pharma business is rational. How is co-creation possible? I mean, can any one of you take the question for the audience so that they feel that human-to-human marketing is just not theory, but something that they would actually implement?
Well,
I mean,
let me try to answer your question. I'll start with something a little earlier. You know, my training is as an economist, and therefore I was trained in the idea that economic behavior itself is rational. Namely, that good decisions will be made because we have full information, and our mind is a logical tool for ordering the opportunities, and then we make a rational choice. Now, during my training, I was probably the worst critic of economic theory, because in the classroom, I would say, I don't think, where are human beings? You're developing basically a utopian vision that is not what happens on the street. It's not real. And I began to, and I go along with Yule in saying this question, that basically, he is interested in uncoding human behavior. Uncoding. The economists never wanted to uncode economic behavior. They just wanted to assume full information and rationality. So along comes marketing in the early 1900s as a discipline to study what really happens in the marketplace. And it gets to be a synthesis of psychology, sociology, economics, a real social science, which economists have not assumed until recently. The good news is that behavioral economics is now taking over economics. Behavioral economics is, as a matter of fact, one of the prize winners last 2 years ago or 3 with his work on nudging. The idea you can nudge a person into a certain behavior is a recognition that behavior is much more emotional and unpredictable than the economists think. And so I wrote an article saying that behavioral economics is nothing more than marketing. Marketing, there's nothing new in what they call behavioral economics. They should just open a book on marketing, because we have all the studies of how people uncode their lives and respond to stimuli. Okay, now I was going to answer your question with that preface, but you got to remind me what you were asking about. Oh yes, cooperation. What is a consumer? Let's start with that. I invented the term prosumer at one point. Yes. And what I meant by that is everyone can be both a consumer and a prosumer. They could be productive. For example, most of us now in the age of the digital world, we can be producers. We can run a newsletter. We could create songs and programs. Well, a lot of consumers are inventing products and selling it directly to target customers without having to go to the normal retailer to carry my product. That's called direct selling. Some consumer develops something, and I'll call that person a prosumer at that point, and they buy the names or information of people who might be interested, and they go do direct marketing on the internet. And so, but the basic idea is even deeper than that. Every company that is going to produce its product, a new product, must not only show it to its target customers and get feedback and make changes based on the feedback, so much so that the final product was co-produced. It was co-produced by both the consumers and the producer. And my criticism is that companies didn't do enough in involving the consumers. They merely saw how the consumers reacted, but they didn't say, join me in making a better product. Now, as a good example of where it was done right, think of Harley Davidson. Harley Davidson, the motorcycle maker. Harley welcomes the customers who have a Harley Davidson to keep telling Harley how to make it better. The next time you make a product like this, do the following. In fact, can we work with you in your workshop? Consumers say, can I be part of the work being done to make the next motorcycle? So that's real cooperation, and so on. And I think that's an answer to your question.
Yes, it's beautifully said, Professor Kotler. And even in our industry, which is today we have a lot of pharma professionals in our audience. Even for us, when we involve patients into what we do, what comes out is really beautiful. So it's not only rational part of it, but their experience, and they all want to, because they want to solve their own problems. So they are ready to come and join hands. And when both come at the equal level of power, what comes out is wonderfully beautiful. I'm getting a message from Prashant who wants to ask a question. So Prashant, Menon, you can ask question and then we can move to our our four speakers.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Gauri. My question is to Professor Phil Kotler. While going through the book, I see a lot of marketing theories that have been captured into the H2H journey, right from the 1900s to the latest 5 E's by Professor Waldemar. What goes behind picking up which kind of theory in sense of its relativity to explaining the concept of H2H? I mean, what's been the mindset that went behind picking up certain theories? I'm sure you had to even omit a few of them to really pick up the ones that substantiate the H2H journey. So what's your take on that, sir?
You know, in a sense, H2H is the model for the next textbooks in marketing. So 80% of what is in that book is found in standard and good textbooks on marketing. And that's why the three of us had 3 additional elements that we think are each very powerful in shaping our mentality as marketers are addressing real markets. Do better design thinking. Remember, you're in the service business, not a product business, but you use products to deliver the service. And remember that it's a digital world, and therefore you can know a lot more about the real needs of even people at the individual level in designing your offerings. Now, I want to just tell you a little story that came about at Procter & Gamble. When we got to be digital, and this is the third big idea, that meant we wanted to use not just 30-second commercials and print advertising. We wanted to get into having Facebook and Instagram and Google and others, social media. So P&G, Procter & Gamble being one of our major corporations, decided to learn as fast as possible what works in the social media. And they took a lot of budget from 30-second commercials, which was their grounding, basically. They took money away and put it into learning as fast as they could what works in social media marketing. And now they've reached a point where they have been cutting down their social media, not to the extent of going back to just old traditional 30-second commercial marketing. Their suggestion is that by piling in and desperately wanting to see what works, they succeeded. They succeeded in how to use Facebook if you're going to use it, and how to use Google if you're going to use it. And now they don't have to waste more money, because so it's a good lesson to any of the companies when you sell them on the idea of going fast into a digital approach, that they will initially have to overspend to learn what works, and then they will bring the budget back to a sensible level. And probably it will be a blending of traditional and digital media, but where they know what works with each of those medium. So
thank you, sir.
Yeah, what a fantastic answer. I mean, you have to fail before you succeed, and therefore you may spend more, but like in your book, 3 of you have said that it is always better to fail fast, iterate, which is the part of design thinking, and that's so important. So
there's another thing that a guy named Eric Ries and others worked on, and that is innovation is key to growing your business. Any business that doesn't change its business will be dead in 5 years. So to innovate, it sounds like I'm saying, well, now get a big project and spend 3 years making the next car, and then hope that the public loves that new car. No, don't do it that way. Instead, design your new product simply. Make the simplest version of what you're thinking of selling, and then design the simplest way of marketing that to people. And then you'll get feedback immediately. Some people say, no, I don't need that kind of thing. I'm not interested. And some will say, I'd like it if it had this feature and that feature. Before you know it, by this quick drawing of something that doesn't exist yet. There's no, in fact, you can go to what we call virtual reality and actually design the next car that doesn't exist. But the consumer who is the target, you give him glasses and he actually feels he's getting into this car that does not exist yet. He feels the engine going and how comfortable or uncomfortable it is. And you get, without ever spending a dime making that car, to know whether it's worth making. So that there's this whole idea of minimal, the minimal product and the minimal marketing being done back and forth with our human beings, our people who might be interested in this. Okay.
Beautiful.
Wonderful. So what we have today is that H2H marketing has three very important pillars. So the industry experts have actually created a small slide deck, and after they explain the whole H2H marketing three pillars, we'll also ask them questions. And Professor Kotler, if you can stay back while they are completing it, we'll be really grateful. And if that's possible. So that's...
Well, I may disappear at some point because of other commitments, but I will stay for a while, and I want to hear my colleagues explicate more of the ideas we have. And one of the ideas that I hope they will demonstrate more is what we call the funnel idea of how you create awareness and then get to create an appeal. That I not only know there's a product like that, but I think I like it. But then questions will come up, you ask, and then you go from ask to the first purchase that may take place. And then the question of whether there's going to be a repeat purchase, and ultimately what we call loyalty and advocacy. So my colleagues took that system that we introduced in 5.0, actually in 4.0, and they did marvelous things with how you go through this system, both from an online and an offline point of view. There's a nice chart you'll see about it. So I think at some point they want to share the process itself of innovating.
Absolutely. That 5A customer journey is a fantastic model, and all of us have learned so much from your marketing 4.0. So the 5 A's are so critical.
Thank you.
Can we have a few more discussions with Professor Waldemar, Professor Kotler, and Professor 𝐿𝐻?
Yeah, of course we could.
Professor Waldemar, you were sharing something, right?
Yes.
Please.
I was sharing the concept which Phil just told us, which is coming from Marketing 4.0, which uses the aware, appeal, ask, act, and advocate system, and at the same time uses the customer journey and looks at the various touch points on the digital and on the physical side. And by going through this journey, we can actually see or guide, depends on the situation where we are, what the customer could do or what the customer is doing. So if we want to achieve the advocate, the loyalty part, we have various means, and this various means is it's physical and digital. And with both sides, if we do it right, we can actually achieve the ultimate advocacy. And this advocacy is that what we actually want. And sometimes we can even jump this loop. If we have achieved the total loyalty, then we don't have to go through the whole customer journey. And that is actually what we want. We want loyal customer. We want customer who really feel that they are taken care We want customers whose problems are solved, and at the end, it is beneficial for both the customer and the company.
So beautiful. And how advocacy itself also increases awareness through word of mouth. So this is like entire journey which completes our marketing efforts in terms of reaching out.
It does not substitute the funnel, but the funnel concept is actually not an interactive one and leaves out all the co-creation aspects. And therefore, I think the customer journey with the 5 A's is actually the more advanced concept for the time we are living in now.
Absolutely. So Professor Waldemar, if I ask you, what are 2 or 3 things you would like to tell the leaders today who are listening, to this conversation? What is it that they should do so the entire human-to-human philosophy and the process and management implementation happens? So quick, any 3 words. I know it's a very, difficult question to put.
It's a difficult task. Thank you for the question. But I think the main part of the H2H marketing is that the leaders have the mindset. I mean, they need to have the inspirational aspect to give it to their people. They cannot expect that people will create that mindset if they don't have it. So it's a top-down approach. It is necessary to think in this new paradigm, to think that we are solving real problems with our offerings. And the customer is part of this problem solving. And if I don't take that serious, I cannot give it to my employees. I cannot give it to my distribution. It's a long process, but nevertheless, if I am convinced, if I am inspirational, I can do that. I mean, Elon Musk is doing something what nobody believed that they will do it. I mean, they changed the car industry. Even there's some criticism on his technology, but nevertheless, he really builds an ecosystem. He cares about not only that have a sold car, but how the people are driving. Actually, he really doesn't want to sell the cars. He wants to give the cars or share the cars. I mean, this is the kind of thinking we could incorporate in new business models.
Absolutely, so true. Professor Waldemar, if I ask you one question on the behalf of the students and very young professionals who are just 2 or 3 years in the organization, what should they do if in case they want to make a change? I mean, is it that they have to wait for the top leaders to understand and walk the path, or you have any advice?
Well, if you start in and you have some organizations who don't think in the H2H way, of course, then you are in trouble. But I think there are many opportunities with the digitalization of our world and with the service orientation of the environment. Many of the young people can actually start or execute some of the ideas by themselves. Of course, they need the agreement of the top leaders, but I mean, small opportunity, as Phil said, there are so many opportunities. Individuals or small groups of people, they can start their own business. They can think in the same term and solve real problems. I would like to encourage that.
Professor Uwe, you want to add something?
Well, I cannot sit still. That's my problem.
And that's so nice.
When you ask me what is the most important thing, that's a really difficult question because I think there are a lot of ideas behind it. And well, I want to give you one story, okay? So, for example, I don't want to make advertisement for my entrepreneurship, but this product is the result of a design thinking project, okay? I think you cannot see it exactly because of the green screen behind me. But let me tell you, what we mean with mindset shift is that it doesn't make sense to think that I can produce or create value. And I put it in the product and send it to a customer or user, and he or she will take out the value. No, I cannot. I'm not a creator of value. What I can do is, because one of the stories is that it's completely misused. You can use it as a weapon. You can use it that your car is not rolling down the hill, but actually it's done for your neck and your upper spine. So it's not in my hands. The only thing what I can do is I can give everything in my educational information to my users, my potential users, that the probability that they use it to get out the value proposition, and it's only a proposition, that's something what we can do. This is one thing. And the mindset, corporate mindset, exists since a long time. I mean, we are building up visions and mission statements and so on. Sorry for that, but what I can read on the websites of the companies is really boring, because it's nearly always the same. They're using some phrases and then they put it on the website, or simple cards and business cards, and try to distribute it to their employees. They don't go down to the individual mindset. And this is for me key. I mean, before I getting questions from companies engaging me in innovation projects, and then they say, listen, my employees can't get out of the box. And I say, listen, they don't know maybe your box. What exactly is your mental box? And this is the same for the mindsets. So we can talk about agile mindset. We can go growth mindset, all the things. And they send us to design thinking workshops for 2-3 days. That doesn't change your mindset. And when they try to apply it, and this is for me the key, try to apply the proposed mindset in concrete projects, day-by-day projects, and then let them come to the top management. And you will see when they say, listen, I'm so happy, within the first week, we made 5 significant failures. And guess what will happen when they present this? And this is exactly what Waldemar means. It has to go through the top management individual mindset. So the human being who is in responsibility to lead the business and to lead people, they have to have the mindset, and then they have to live it the whole day. And that's something what I think is very necessary. So when we want to start with one thing, you cannot apply H2H marketing, you cannot apply H2H management concepts when you don't have the mindset. So the first thing you have to do is work on your mindset.
Yeah, Professor Hui, you said something very important. I know this book is filled with very, very interesting concepts, but one very important concept you just spoke about is that as a producer, we can only offer value proposition, but we can't really promise it. And we are as a marketer, we are in a business of creating value propositions and promising them to customers without really knowing. So can you just elaborate a little more on that? Because it really caught my attention.
Well, it's an interesting process. Writing a book and try to apply it in your own business means that you are sometimes shocked, and you have to go back and to rewrite the book, right? And that happened to me several times. So when I come from my medical product business, I still have to insist that first you have to identify human problems. And I think you were so right to say that pharmacy industry or clinics or something like that, who by nature work with humans, you have really a chance to think about, let's start with the human problem. So let's discover a human problem. And that's pure innovation. It doesn't make sense to make a faster car and a faster car and a faster car, or a more convenient car. And if it doesn't fulfills a basic need. So ask, that's something I learned in innovation process. You have to ask so often why until you end up in a human need. And once you have identified this human need, you can only propose a thing what somebody can do. And I don't care, is it the services? To explain it in service dominant logic, service is the application of knowledge and capabilities. And for me, that's exactly what drives me. So when I have a certain capability and knowledge and I can use it in the favor of some third one, and the third one is a human being, not a machine, that's very important for me, then I have a chance to really propose the value proposition. And then I can do everything with my communication. What I can do through all channels is to try to reach my potential users and explain them how they should use the value proposition. Otherwise, it might hurt them, especially in the medical sector. That's very important. And I'm pretty sure you know that from the pharmacy industry. when it's overused or misused a medicine, then it is definitely counterproductive. So that's something what I mean. And I have attended a lot of innovation projects. It was completely engineering dominated. I'm not against engineers, but they are specialized on the question how. They are not specialized on the question why. And so a designer is really thinking in forms and aesthetics, but we marketers, we must be specialized in meaning. And that's really something what we can contribute to value proposition innovation. That's it.
Yeah, let me connect that with a good example. Namely, we had wonderful new drugs created to fight COVID-19. And they were designed and lots of problems had to be solved. But the real surprising thing was we never realized that there will be people who won't want to be vaccinated and people who won't wear masks. And I think you would address that as a question in even that Kaiser, one of the developers of the solution, should they have, it wouldn't change the solution they came up with, but it certainly would have helped if they had thought that it wasn't going to be welcomed necessarily. In other words, there was no thought about the users. And had there been thought, maybe I can argue that there'd be much more readiness to accept and trust that new drug.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of reasons behind people, there is hesitancy behind vaccine is, of course, like you rightly said, the human problem is not understood well. They have their own inhibitions, their own psychological reasons for not wanting to get vaccinated. And in this world, no one is safe till everyone is safe. So we are actually facing a big problem there. Yeah. I understand there is one question from one of the speakers, today. So I don't see the person's name, but if there is one, Swati, can you just put it on and then we can move ahead with the industry speakers?
We'd like to have some light on Marketing 5, where it talks about neural marketing. Can you throw some more light on neural marketing, which is there in your Marketing 5.0?
Well, yes, we have on our faculty at Northwestern University a person who is very gifted in understanding the brain. I mean, after all, if we're talking about uncoding human behavior, we have to understand the brain and how it works. But what he does is he helps companies like Procter & Gamble and others test reactions to offers and value propositions. For example, we ask a set of people to put something on their head, which will read their brain waves, basically, and then you show them a 30-second commercial. And one possibility is the brain wave just stays steady during the short showing of the commercial, which means that nothing, there was no blip, there was no result, no impact on the message. One thing you might do is have someone else do the same message, a more attractive or effective speaker, and you'll see from a steady wave to suddenly a blip. Now, you don't know why the blip occurred because it happened automatically. It wasn't a chosen thing by a rational consumer. But you go back and you say, just about at the point where the speaker said X, it must have done something to you because your brain blipped up. And she says, yes, it was just that word that they used got to me. Well, so you can now use neuroscience, which is the science of the brain, and the tools for measuring these things to identify whether a message is being meaningful and impactful. And you can try to explore why it happened that way. So every faculty I know is trying to have a neuroscientist sort of in the marketing department.
I only can strengthen this. Sorry for interrupting, because I also have a lab. And this laboratory is a fusion of different disciplines. And I think this is another key message. We cannot explain human behavior without being interdisciplinary. And this is something also I learned from design thinking. And by nature, a marketer should be open-minded to other disciplines. And it's so important for me because with the, I saw a message from Phil in LinkedIn that we have a gaining importance of customer experience. I would like to expand it to human experience, okay? And there's a totally human experience. And I have all kind of virtual and augmented reality technologies available to manipulate the brain and the body of people and to measure it together with psychologists, socialists. And so we have different ethnographers. We have a very interdisciplinary team to study each and every exposure, right? I can make any stimuli because that's the wonderful thing with the digitalization. I'm not anymore restricted to reality. I really can, before it exists, create any kind of stimulus. And this stimulus can be analyzed, what happens in our brain, with our heartbeats, with our blood pressure. So I even can make a brain scan during their exposure to this stimulus. And this allows us insights into humans we never had before. On the same time, it gives us a might, a power we never had before. And so there appears a second question, which is not only the core competency. When we are having this encoding secret of human behavior, we have to take care. Then there is a ethics question, right? Marketing ethics will appear and will enter the field. So we have to be very careful with that kind of knowledge because I can manipulate your brain in a way we never could before. That's it. So I definitely go with Philip. We cannot live without neuroscience today. We have to use it because it encodes humans in the brain, and that's so necessary.
But that gives a responsibility to the marketeers. I mean, in the old days, we could do things just to test it, but now we know it will affect and it will change the world. Therefore, the marketeers have a responsibility.
Absolutely. And like you say in your book, that we are responsible to the people, not only customers, but all actors, people, societies, communities, and of course, as a whole human race. So absolutely goes with what you have put for there in the book. So Dr. Swati, all the three authors also are interested in knowing how our speakers today have decoded some of the very important principles and how they have put it in practice. So should we go ahead and start with Mr. Vivek Hattangadi?
Sure, Gauri ma'am.
I'm sure. All the three authors, I hear, and every audience wants to hear them. But they also told us that they want to hear how they have decoded, our speakers have decoded H2H marketing. So we can hear from them and then open it for discussion. So quickly, if speakers can take us through how their understanding of these concepts are. Everybody knows Vivek sir, and he has really blessed the entire industry with his wisdom. But again, just as a formality, Vivek Hattangadi, a perpetual learner, as he calls himself, carries with him 46 years of learning experience in pharma industry. He has authored 6 books on pharma branding, marketing, and sales. He is also guest faculty in many pharma business schools and is chief mentor with PharmaState Academy, the online life science learning platform. So over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. And I would like to thank Professor Kotler on the eve, or rather a few days before his 90th birthday. He has given humankind, or rather to say the marketeer kind, a wonderful gift in the form of H2H marketing, the genesis of human-to-human marketing. However, Professor Kotler's disappointment on marketing practices. Marketing practice, he says, differs greatly from the normative construct. And I'm going to relate it to the pharma industry, particularly in South and Southeast Asia. Pharmaceutical marketing is not really aligned with the good marketing practices. And that is what Professor Kotler says in his book. marketers follow those practices that reap positive results only for one party at the expense of the other, maybe for the pharma company itself, or maybe the SCPs or the doctors, but is very, very, very rarely for the patient. And what I have learned from this book, H2H Marketing, we should first look at the patient, what the patient requires, and we should start from the end. What is going to be the outcome of the treatment? And that is where H2H marketing should start with. When the patients are losing out and the pharma or the doctor wins, the gains are short-lived. The pharma can achieve short-term profits until other competitors arrive. Our government regulations become necessary. And I have a few examples here. In the Indian pharmaceutical industry, for example, azithromycin is one of the most commonly used antibiotics here. Till the year 2021, physician's desk reference says that the dose of azithromycin is 1 tablet once a day for 3 days. But this drug somehow marketers felt has reached a stage of maturity and they wanted to increase the revenues. So they introduced this in strips of 5. Most of the disease, the dose still continues to be 1 tablet 3 times a day. What happens to those 2 tablets? It's a sheer waste of money, sheer waste of national resources. And there is another ruthless example which Professor Kotler mentioned. It's a book about Daraprim, about Turing Pharmaceuticals who jacking up the price of this life-saving drug to 750 per dose. When you talk about the Indian context, it is around 56,000 rupees per dose. Straight away from $1,350 to $750 per dose. Another ruthless example. When Epiven was taken over by Menon Pharmaceuticals, the price went to 600 times more, $608, where this EpiPen is, or other epinephrine injections are available in India for just 5 rupees for a pack of 30. But this, is it really possible to build trust? Can people trust the pharma industry? And in a very recent study which was carried out by PharmaState and the University, Hamdard University, Jamia Hamdard University, many of the patients, they have lost trust with the pharma companies. And the foundation for H2H mindset is trust. So H2H mindset should be anchored deeply inside the organization. It should be internalized not only by just people in the sales and marketing, but even those who produce the drugs, those who manufacture the drugs, like for example, the F&D. The F&D should align with the patients, find out what are the needs, and they should have products to satisfy those human needs of the patients. However, this kind of transition has to start from the top. Unless the owner, the CEO, the CFO, the C-suite, they change our mindset, it will be very, very difficult for the people below to accept H2H mindset. H2H mindset is basically a component of H2H marketing model and is a prerequisite for H2H marketing. All thoughts and actions in marketing of pharmaceutical products should be for the good of the patients. The very reason why should a pharmaceutical company exist, the purpose of existence of a pharmaceutical company is to serve the patient. The act in a service-oriented way and use the skills and knowledge for the patient's benefit and for the treatment outcome. Listening, we should listen to the patient. Only when we listen to the patients, we are able to understand their pain points. Why so many books have been written on the malpractices of pharma? And all these books have been bestsellers. And that is because we suffer from a disease. The pharmaceutical industry suffers from a disease which is called moral myopia. We are unable to see ethics. Pharma companies have introduced many drugs. We may even introduce a drug for COVID, but we have still not introduced a drug for moral myopia. However, it is Professor Philip Kotler and his co-authors who have discovered a treatment for moral myopia in the form of the book H2H Marketing, the Genesis of Human-to-Human Marketing. The prescription for this moral myopia, reading the book. The dose, once a month till everyone internalizes it, and a booster dose every year on the 31st of December when you make your New Year's resolutions, because New Year resolutions, they last only till the New Year weekend.
Yeah.
The CMO must create the highest benefits for the patient, the doctor, and the pharma company. H2H mindset is for good pharma citizenship. That's all what I want to say. Thank you very much.
So the next important pillar of H2H marketing is service dominant logic. And that tough topic is going to be handled by Prashant Menon. He has more than 27 years of corporate experience in pharma industry. He has 4 years of corporate journey, has been in multicultural, multi-location companies as their managing director. Prashant has 2 internationally certified coaching credentials from Marshall Goldsmith Coaching and from the Global Coach Group. So Prashant, can you quickly tell us, because everyone is waiting to ask question to our authors, and we must give them that chance.
Yeah, thanks, Gauri, and I'll be quick on this. The last 18 months has been purely like bold for all of us, and there has been so much that has changed over the last number of months and years. I mean, we've changed our habits, we've changed our cultures, we've changed the way we behave, and what's most important is that we've actually come across something which is to do a lot with human. I mean, we've gone beyond the lands of the places where we live, to the countries, to the continents. We've all been through a very porous border, and we've acted a lot human. And healthcare has been one of the biggest beneficiaries and one of the biggest benefactors to this entire journey. And no better timing than what we could have had this entire human-to-human marketing concept being unleashed to all of us here. And I really will pick up a very key line from that. And this really attracted me to what the H2H marketing has its ambition all set to be, is to actually look at leaving the malpractices behind and to actually see on how do we move on an ethical and collaborative way to engage with customers. It's the trust factor that the companies in the healthcare should really bring about in a very strong manner. And what is our effort in trying to co-create value together as a team and not at the expense of each other? And this is the bulwark of what H2H marketing is all about. And let's really try and explore what has been the changes that's happened. I mean, the book really brings about some fantastic timeline on how the crucial milestones in marketing has evolved. I mean, right from the 4 Ps, we all know and live the 4 Ps by heart, which has been a very instrumental paradigm. And this came up in the 1960s, where it was a lot to do with the goods dominant logic, and I'll come to that in a moment. What happened over the last many years is in the next 10 to 20 years, we started moving to a competitive edges. I mean, the product started getting better. The competition started pushing producers and manufacturers to add more value to what their clients could get. And hence that became the competition paradigm. And somewhere one started to wonder what happened to the consumer. Who's going to be really looking after the consumer? Because all that is happening from the 1900s to the 1960s and 70s was all about the producer, was all about the goods. What happens to the consumer? And that's when you started seeing a lot of evolutionary theories that actually started getting the consumers onto the forefront. And there started coming a lot of the impact on the relationship management. Companies started to look at sustainability a lot longer. Retail competition started getting a lot more intense. And today, in the 2000 plus years, in the 2010 onwards, you've had a plethora of digital connectivity interconnectivity, hyper-localization that's really dominating the front. And this digital value creation can also have a flip side to, we all are aware of how a lot of regulatory protocols are really coming in place to get the digital aspect right. And what is the new paradigm that we're talking about? H2H marketing considers this thinking as a co-creative service. I mean, we saw how, Professor Kotler, Dr. let's say 𝐁𝐢𝐫𝐿, and Professor Waldemar spoke about the co-creation of a service exchange. And that's exactly the milestone of a service dominant logic. And this logic has been introduced by Wargo and Lush in the year 2004. It has been a seminal work that had been published in the AMA journal after 10 years of research. And what does this define services as? It's a very, very interesting piece, because this really sets in context what is going to be the role that healthcare marketeers and even marketeers in general can actually start looking at. It's the application of competencies in knowledge and skills through deeds, processes, and performances for the benefit of another entity or for themselves. And what better way to look at how a service-driven industry or a service-dominant logic should start applying itself. And this is a very big change from the earlier goods-dominant logic. What did the goods-dominant logic speak about? It spoke about goods being the primary center of excellence. I mean, it was all a producers-driven market. The 4 Ps beautifully embellished that entire thing. And as you moved centuries, or as you moved the decades, you started to move more towards a service-driven market. And that's what the goods dominant logic translates to a service dominant logic today, or actually tells us to look at the service dominant logic. So from a tangibles where units of exchange was the key, you move to an intangibles where knowledge and skills and the processes were actually driving the whole force. In a goods dominant logic, you spoke about standardization. You had batches after batches that were produced. It was a seller's market. You had to make and sell. The consumer would buy it, and what they say very beautifully, the consumer destroys the value. When he says destroys the value, because he consumes the value, and if he wanted another good, he had to go and purchase it. So from here, you actually start moving to another logic, which is the service dominant logic. What happens in services dominant logic? You are talking of intangibles, you're talking of individualization, where every customer, I mean, look at the way today you are profiling customers, the way you're profiling doctors, the way you're having patient communities, the way you're having disease therapies being mapped up. That's the way you're looking at how you're using your knowledge. And the advantage is, how much are you in touch with your customers to co-create the entire thing? We are all talking about doctors and patients. I would also want you all to give a lot of impetus to what happens to the other stakeholders who are there in the business. What happens to the entire supply chain today that's galvanized its entire effort in the COVID era? There's a lot that we can do together to really co-create that value that can come up from them. A slightly busy slide, but let me just give it a very, very quick takeaway for you. The first part of the slide that I'm talking about is what is the goods dominant era that moves to the age of transcendence, where the PPE, it's not your PPE kit, but it's the purpose, the passion, and the experience that today consumers and companies want. Everybody wants to take a stand on what they believe in. What's the purpose of a brand? What's the purpose of a company? Actually comes up very beautifully in this entire service dominant logic. And where are we as a company? Are you really following this experience? Are you really looking at understanding the passion and the purpose that your customers want? Probably it's time that you do it, in case you're just transitioning somewhere in between. So what is the nature of business exchange and the role that changes? Very simple. You're actually looking at customers who were a group of buyers that went into a transactional behavior and looked at a lifetime bond with the customers. Now, is that bond enough? Is it enough to sustain relationship-based marketing? The answer is no. It's more important to move to a co-creation of value, which is actually going to take you milestones ahead. So very typically, the consumer who's a passive audience in a goods dominant logic has started getting a very active player in the service dominant logic. The word itself tells you, it encourages you to actually start talking to people. So the question that you might want to ask yourself, where are you transitioning your way from this GDL to the SDL? And this table actually gives you a little insight into what you are needing to do. Are you really talking of services and offerings, or are you also talking about experiences? What's the kind of experiences that you want? As a brand manager, are you still stuck on to the good old feature benefit attributes, or you're talking of solutions? So an interesting question is, as a brand manager, what do? I handle brand X, brand B. May not be the right answer. You might want to say, as a brand manager, I'm going to manage diabetes as, let's say, the solutions for diabetes management, or I'm trying to manage patients who can get cured of cancer. This is what is the solution that you're trying to talk about, keeping the end customer right in the forefront of everything. So your journey to co-create value will only happen through dialogues. How often are you dialoguing? Are you only looking at an integrated marketing that just goes one way and taking selective audiences? Or are you dialoguing at every step? And the more you dialogue, the more you engage and involve the people around you, I think there starts the beginning of a service orientation mindset that you and your company will start actually moving the needle. And for brand managers here,
We have lost you, Prashant.
1 minute. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what we're talking about is, how does the brand era evolve? In the 1900s, you looked at an individual focus, which is the goods dominant logic. Beautifully explains why post World War II, we wanted to open up economy, industrialization opened up. It was all about goods, standardization, building inventory, people coming and purchasing and going. What happens to it later? What is the functional and the symbolic value that started having when value started coming on board? And when value started coming on board, when competition started pushing you to have your USP in a brand, you then started to move on to the relationship marketing. Because merely having a USP or merely having a brand advantage over the other was not enough. It's your relationship that mattered. And when your relationship mattered, you started to get more prescriptions. You started to get more support from your customers. But is that today enough? It's getting evolved further. In now the 2010s and the 2020s, you're actually talking of a stakeholder focus. And that's where it is. When I talk of stakeholders, it's not enough to just talk about stakeholders with respect to the external market. What's your engagement with stakeholders within the organization? Whether it's a manufacturing department, whether it's a finance department, whether it's a medical marketing department, or it's a supply chain department. How much are you engaging your stakeholders with understanding what is the human problem outside? Because if they are as engaged as you will then truly be moving to a journey towards a service dominant logic. My penultimate slide that talks about a wonderful model that comes up in the book, which is a customer-based view. There are various views to look at the customer. So in a 4P model, you have the product at the center, or you have the producer at the center, and you have everything moving around it. But in a H2H model, you're talking of an integrated model. You're looking at the customer from various aspects. If you're looking at a resource-based view, okay, I have got these competencies in my organization and I can reach the customer that way, is one way to approach. What's the other route? You have the market, you have customer feedback, you have market understanding, market feasibility. Okay, and let me now enter the customer and service him. That's another view. The other view is, what's the value that investors and stakeholders and shareholders can provide the company? The job of the stakeholders and the management is to constantly improve competencies, is to constantly improve market understanding, because our job is to provide the consumer, the customer, the highest value. And that value can come in co-creation methodologies. So this is the way, a three-pronged approach, an integrated approach, in which you will not only improve the company value, but you will also improve the customer value, with the idea that the customer is in the central of all your activities. And I'm going to leave you with certain questions that I always, the coach in me brings about, is that what could be the 3 H2H Connect questions that you could be asking yourself every day? Everyone can play a role in the H2H syndrome. I call it the syndrome because it can go across the board. It's not related to leadership. Leadership plays the path. Leadership drives that. But in your own style, you could be a brand manager, you could be a distribution manager, you could be purely a sales manager here. What's your question that you could do? My first question is going to be about, did I do my best to connect and dialogue with one customer today? In the pharma, customer can be a doctor and consumer can be the patient. Did I connect and dialogue with them? And please note, did I do my best? The answer and the emphasis is there. It's a personal accountability that you need to take if you want to transition into an H2H mindset. Did I do my best and connect to learn from one consumer today? So you're looking at a customer open, you're looking at a consumer window, and the finale is, did I do my best to connect and support one stakeholder today? Because these are 3 vital cogs in the wheel, which is going to help you drive the entire H2H marketing concept. And if you really want to get this H2H mindset, you got to ask these questions to yourself every day. Every working day, Are you dialoguing? Are you learning? Are you supporting your customer, your consumer, your stakeholder? Because if you do that, I guess we are all going to be in a path where we're going to humanize our activities. We're going to really humanize our efforts in trying to bring the H2H marketing into life. Else, we will be left behind only looking at how to promote goods to a customer who may not be interested and might just switch over. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Prashant. Thank you so much. And it was indeed a difficult topic to talk about, but you explained it beautifully. Yeah. So, Salil, you need no introduction. So, Salil is the person for India's digitalization. And since Swati has not put up the slide, so I'm going to just say 2 lines about him. Everybody in this country knows Salil. They know how Salil has actually helped people to transform digitally. So digitization to digitalization to digital transformation. So Salil, it's your it's your field now. Please tell us what do you take away from H2H marketing in terms of how do you build the 3rd pillar, digitalization?
Thank you, Gauri. Thank you very much for the very warm words of introduction. And I'm going to be filling very big shoes of Pranav and Prashant. So I just want to spend a few minutes talking on the 3rd pillar, which is digitalization. But I think one most important thing I want to start off with is by saying that human-to-human marketing or human-to-human relationships entirely is based on trust. And I think trust is one of the major factors where the healthcare industry is essentially getting into trouble, largely because we have started to be perceived as an industry that is placing people over profit. So if you see the 2019 survey that was done by Gallup in the US, the pharmaceutical industry actually ranks right at the bottom of all the industries. And this is mind you a market where the industry advertises almost as much as Coke or Pepsi. So it's not an industry where there is no customer connect or there's no patient connect or no human connect. So despite that level of advertising and reaching out, somewhere the human centeredness has not really hit well with people over there, despite the fact that the pharmaceutical industry is very much important or very responsible for doing great things like increasing the life expectancy of human beings. So somewhere in the 20s, about 100 years ago, people lived to a measly age of about 20 years. And from then on, 100 years later, we've increased that life expectancy to about 70 years, added 50 years to the lives of human beings. I don't think that's a small achievement by any standard. So despite that, why is pharma or why is the healthcare industry considered so low in terms of trust? I think that's because we have a feeling that we put profit before people. And I think that is one of the most important things that we have to take over. Why that is important is, right. So I think, it's important for us in the industry to really think about how we can move away from fighting over products, over brands in a hyper commoditized, hyper generic industry, where we are fighting in creating deep red oceans. By product centricity, we are actually not really allowing or unlocking value that can happen when you start to think about engaging customers or engaging or providing them a great experience. Now, I'm using the word customer, and I'm quite acutely aware of the fact that Pranav said that a human is better than a customer. So I think the takeaway that I would like our colleagues to have is that if you are able to move away from product centricity to human centricity, I think there is a huge amount of value that can be unlocked. We don't really have to worry about where the next growth is going to come from, where the next orbit of business is going to come from. So that, I think, is a very, very important concept that got covered in the H2H marketing as well. So I think that's one of the reasons. I think companies around the world have understood this. It's just for pharma and some of the others, the healthcare companies, to realize this, that 89%, 90% of companies across industries, this is a Gartner report of 2020, 15 that said that 90% of companies will compete on customer experience through digitalization. I think there are three important shifts that pharma should specifically be aware of. One is that customer experience or human experience is a competitive advantage. I think we should start looking at it that way. I know we are too caught up in the product centricity because our incentives are perverse. We get our bonuses on the sales that we do, on the number of units that we sell. But moving that to thinking about the customer, thinking about human, making it a human-centered approach, I think is a very, very strong differentiator that one can create. And I think it's going to be a significant competitive advantage for companies that will do this. I think one of the best ways to do this is to to use technology, because technology unleashes an amount of resource liberalization. It liberates a lot of resources. And from that perspective, you will be able to serve at scale. No company is going to make it to the top 10 or top 15 if you continue to do the same things that you're doing today. If there has to be scale, there has to be an outreach, there has to be a market expansion at an exponential level. And so from that perspective, I think technology is a platform that needs to be adopted very, very seriously. And bringing in that human-centeredness really works on ecosystems, not just products. Individual products and portfolios are great, but unless we create an ecosystem which digital or technology allows us to do, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to actually bring out the human-centeredness in our approach. I think this is, it's a very opportune moment for this book to come, and it's excellent that we've started to talk about human-centeredness, because if you look at the changes in human behavior, the pandemic has actually accelerated it. Okay, and acceleration of the pandemic is in such a way that people are actually starting to think about do-it-yourself healthcare. They're starting to become participative. They're thinking about healthcare in a way that they never thought about before. Despite the fact that physical proximities are limited, chances of going out of your house is limited, you're still in a lockdown, nothing has really changed, right? So healthcare has now come home. And this has happened through a dematerialization of goods and services into software and apps. We are living in a world of digital healthcare. We're starting to think about the future as how you can use app-related things, wearables, sensors, data, going around, etc. So and this, I think, is an opportune moment for the industry to think about scaling, because in the physical world, it would mean prime real estate, it would mean building brick and mortar stores, which would probably, and the turnaround time would probably be a few years. Today, you can do this in weeks or in days if you've got it right. Dematerializing goods and services into software and apps is really something that we should consider as one of our business models. Healthcare is digital is probably an understatement. I think everyone knows that people are now connected through different ways. People are extremely participative in their healthcare, like I said, and the role of SOLOMO, or social, local, and mobile phones, is extremely high. People are depending on social networks to seek out local providers, and local providers all over their mobile phones. It's so easy. With the tap of a button, with the tap of a screen, you are able to find some of the best doctors in areas around you, some of the best healthcare providers in the areas around you, and read their reviews online, find out whether those are the right people you can go through your social networks, and so on and so forth. So the SOLOMO concept is actually working extremely well in making healthcare connected, and in keeping people aware of how to consume healthcare in a digital world. I think the human-to-human concept with all of this is going to be phenomenal, largely because as the digitization of service providing, or the dematerialization of service providing, starts to increase the bandwidth of humans will have a lot of more time on their hand to be just that, humans. So the kind of jobs like health coaches, genetic counselors, patient concierges, chaperoning a patient from discovery to delivery is going to be easier for people to do, because most of the heavy lifting is going to be transferred to technology. As technology starts to do repetitive work of nurses, of doctors, and so on and so forth, those people who are especially trained in human-centeredness will start to see different kind of opportunities approach, and therefore that improves the human-centeredness. It improves the experience of people, and it makes healthcare not something to be afraid of. It makes healthcare something that you can go through without really having to worry about the pain. I think it is the same will, going into the future, we are starting to see machines, we are starting to see emotional artificial intelligence. Today, Alexa can, or any of these home devices can actually detect emotion in your voice. They can understand how to respond to you. They bring emotion into the kind of messages that you hear. You don't hear a dull metallic voice that you used to hear earlier. You're actually not sure whether you're talking to a human or a machine. Okay, and that level is just going to increase. This is still not very clear now. It's not come to a level of expertise at this point of time, but going forward, I think this is how technology is going to progress. And when this sort of technology progresses, machines also are likely to become human centered. And I think that's something that's something we should remember. I think the future is more or less singular, where you'll start to forget where humans ended and machines began. And I think that's where one of the quotes in the H2H book, started to appeal very well to me, because this is about how you can get human beings, how you can put humans at the center. Prashant spoke about this brilliantly a few minutes ago. And it's all about credibility, honesty, integrity, and empathy. Those are emotions, and it'll be a great day for us if we start to see machines also do this. Bring in that emotion. Relate to human beings like humans, imbibe the values that makes humans so special, and helps us to sit at the top of the food chain. So I would like to propose that the future is probably just not human to human, it's going to be human to machine. So thank you very much for your patient listening, and I will hand over back to Gauri.
Very fantastically said, Mr. Vivek Hattangadi. It is really important for all of us to imbibe it. Like Professor Waldemar has said, that there are 3 pillars to H2H mindset. So may I call upon Mr. Pranav Kumar to talk about design thinking, part of H2H marketing. Yeah, once again, everyone knows Mr. Pranav Kumar, and a management consultant with very strong expertise on customer experience, continuing professional education. He has 26 years of corporate experience in pharmaceutical and management consulting industry. His key interest areas are customer experience, design, patient experience, design thinking, marketing strategy, and continuing professional development, CPD, for healthcare and life science professionals. So, Pranav Kumar sir, please let us know what are your thinkings through design thinking window to understand H2H marketing.
Thank you very much. I believe for me this is a dream come true. Speaking in before the father of marketing, Philip Kotler, Professor Ove, and Professor Waldemar, it is my privilege. I'm very happy and thanks for this opportunity, madam. I'm very proud that the position what I hold is Chief Experience Designer. I myself is a Customer Experience Designer. I'm very proud of that. You will feel that. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So, 2 things happened in 1998. 2 things happened which affected my life after that. One thing was in June 1998, I got married. The other thing you see here is 1998, this article came in Harvard Business Review. Welcome to new experience economy. And it set a stage. I think this is mentioned in the book of H2H Marketing, which Professor Kotler and et al. Has written. And this has a stage, and if you see, compare the companies 10 years back or 20 years back, those companies who were top 20 company in the world, and now currently in 2021, top 20 company in the world, and only one distinct feature, if you want to identify, pick it up, what makes change in the ranking of the new kind of company like Amazon or Apple, type of company, it is one thing that is called customer experience. So there is a moving away from product-led business to the experience-led business, which is shaping the economy, which is shaping the competition, which is shaping the market. That is the shift happen. I think if you go back to industrial era, where the making a product, whatever commodity it is, any color is fine as long as it is black. From then, now where people are seeking experience, they are not looking at the product. They want to fulfill their need for a super little personalized, unique experience they are seeking for. That is the change happen. And that, if you see, Professor Kotler also told about what is the role of the people, the business leaders, businesses now. And I'm quoting from Tim Brown from IDEO. He says that leaders now look to innovation as a principal source of differentiation and competitive advantage. They would do well to incorporate design thinking into all phases of processes. So design thinking is something I give credit to IDEO. They have popularized this, though it was prevalent in Europe much before that. Now, coming back, what two things Professor Waldemar was talking about, a mindset and a toolbox. Now, bringing that H2H marketing into design thinking perspective from the design thinking window. All of you know this, I think, phrase, and you can figure out what is not written here. The number one mindset need to be any marketeer is to be empathetic. You need to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. Now let me ask you questions. Many of you are from the marketing or sales leader in a pharmaceutical company. Have you ever sat and thought that putting yourself in the patient's place and feeling how it pains or how it is the experience while they consume your medicine or they go to the hospital, they meet the doctor? Have you thought sitting yourself in a physician's place chair and looking at a patient who is crying, complaining throughout the day? At the end of the day, 20 or 50 medical reps waiting and displaying one after one, same monotone, same kind of communication product, monotony for maybe half an hour, 2 hour, or 3 hour continuously, maybe 50 or 100 medical reps. Think that. If you are able to put yourself in the shoes of a patient or in the shoes of a doctor, and then make your brand plan, I'm sure you will be able to empathize with them. You are able to create some solution which is much better, which is much more delightful to them. Empathy is the basis for human-to-human marketing. This is the first essential element. As a mindset, it is not about the marketer. It is mindset about the every employee of the company. It is not about the frontline executive. It is about the back-end worker as well, because they contribute. There is different process. I'm talking about H2H process and how design thinking can help you. So this is the IDEO process, Stanford D School process, which is by and large with some plus minus using the different terminology. Different people, different schools are using that. There is no difference in the process, and the process is not linear. Actually, sometimes you go forward and come back. So start with empathy, as I said. With the customer, define the problem. Do ideate. Professor Kotler was talking about make a low-cost car, right? We call it minimum viable product. Go to the customer as a prototype and ask your customer, is it what you are looking for? They may say something. Then again come back. So it is called fail fast. Fail fast. Design something, go to the customer. It could be very design, but it should be physical design. Something can be seen. So we have a two-way. One is that experience the patient journey, map the patient journey, both with the qualitative as well as quantitative research for your doctor map the SCP journey in digital as well as physical interaction with you and try to innovate that. This is one thing I would like to share about. People are looking for some real example in pharmaceutical industry. So the two project, there are multiple projects we did in Dr. Reddy's. So what the outcome was came in this, the pack, which we called internally IDEO pack. Now we worked with IDEO, Tim Brown's company, IDEO, and then we did the immersion. The head of the business, the vice chairman of the company, G.V. Prashant himself talked to the patient and customers, and then with the whole process, we developed a pack which is more friendly. About the CME program, all pharma does that, but we deployed the design thinking approach to develop something which is not about talking about the product or science, but helping customers to be better doctor, better customer. So that is the brief about that. I think we'll talk more on the question and answer session. Design thinking is something to solve your problem, creativity, with the creativity, and it could be any stage, any problem, and create something interesting. It is not the chemistry, think about the anthropology, think about the patient, like you see here in this last slide, this MRI machine for the children in hospital. Why it can't be interesting one so that children love to go there? That's all from my side. Thank you very much.